CDOT unleashes the nuclear winter option, shutting down a huge stretch of I-70. But why this time? High school wrestlers lose to their school district's lack of common sense. I get being careful, but what happened today is just not right. Do you love skiing enough to stand in a lift line this long? Do you love anything enough to stand in a line this long? Voters approved paying more to feed hungry kids. A year later, want to guess how many meals they've managed? And I get that parking in the snow is hard, but dude, that's the sidewalk. And it's next.
It's cold outside. I'm cold on the inside. But in between you and me, well, we have found a toasty spot to spend the next 30 minutes or so talking about what all happened today. Like CDOT closing I-70 from Golden clear up to the tunnel. That is an aggressive move. Our Marshall Zellinger is cozy inside CDOT's secret underground ops bunker. And Marshall, why did they decide to go total shutdown as opposed to letting people with chains and four-wheel make a go at it?
Well, first of all, perhaps because we're not in an underground bunker. I'm above ground, and it's not so secret because there's a CDOT sign out front here in Golden. Why did they choose this? Because the conditions were so bad. It's monitored in this room. It's like a mini war room where you can see different screens of what's going on the highway. And with so many cars on the road and so much snow coming down in such a short period of time, the plows just couldn't keep up.
All right, any questions for Avalanche?
Don't get me wrong, it's nice and cozy inside CDOT's Winter Operations Center.
We just want to get a quick status of where you're at.
But the decisions made in this room make it far from a cush gig.
Yeah, right now we can't really, it's hard to plow.
Yeah.
Because of all the queues.
I know.
This is one of 10 conference calls that have guided decision-making since 6 a.m.
Mother Nature was angry for some reason.
So angry, she forced CDOT to shut down I-70 from Golden to the tunnels and stranded drivers who were already passed. It got us thinking, has CDOT ever considered closing the road hours earlier, knowing that it's going to get bad?
I don't know that we've ever closed it when it was dry now. We close it because we know that if there's cars stuck, we can't plow it.
Stephen Harrelson is CDOT's chief engineer, who takes into account road conditions, how much snow has fallen, and the dangers of an avalanche in determining when a road should close.
Do you have any responsibility to the ski resorts?
Absolutely. That is an enormous industry. But again, it's life safety.
CDOT even took Denver metro area plows and moved them into the mountains for a few loops last night.
We're good on resources. We can sustain for the next 2 or 3 days.
And the conference calls today dictate where the needs are next.
It's been kind of a marathon over the last couple days. We'll get a little lull tomorrow, but then we're going to have another storm coming in Saturday night into Sunday.
Here's what it looks like in this mini operations center, and you can see in that top left screen the plows doing the work. I'm a little jealous. They've got a pretty good touch screen right there in the middle. And you're going to see a little behind the scenes. Kyle, what would it be in a war room without pizza and pop? I'm going to say pop. I know people say soda. And my lights. And I will just say that I think these rooms are really neat, and I hope I come back into focus here. I'm trying my best Matt Renew impression. Being able to watch the operations, it's neat. I know it's a tough opportunity and decision-making if you're stuck out there, but they're really working hard in here, even with this cold pizza and warm pop.
So, Marshall, to hear CDOT say, oh, yeah, we have a responsibility to the ski industry, to those private businesses, I think that's the kind of thing that we always assumed was the case, but yet I'm still surprised to hear them say it out loud on the television.
I was surprised by the answer as well, but they followed it up with it's still safety first. So even though they try to keep the road open for those purposes of the ski industry, it's not at the risk of people's safety.
That's good to know. Your life and mine closely followed by the ski industry. All right, Marshall Zellinger in the secret underground bunker of CDOT. Thank you, sir. Hey, some people made it to the high country, even with I-70 closed. They must have been up there already. And it led to this enormous pile of humans in the line for lifts at Vail today. I mean, I don't know, does that look like fun to you? We've seen a lot of angles on this. I mean, goodness, though, really? So Bradley Nardick shared these photos with us. He says that he waited about 75 minutes in line to get on the lifts. From the looks of it, if you're there, you're going all the way down, looping around, then getting on a chair, getting on the gondola. I don't know. That looks longer than 75 minutes to me. And I guess there were a handful of lifts closed that complicated things even more. But, man, if you could be there and you could get up, Vail got 17 inches of snow over the last day or so. School districts just get savage for their snow day decisions. And Colorado's largest, Denver Public Schools, has a pretty loud contingent of critics. I do think you have to give Denver some credit for at least telling parents when to expect today's snow day decision. District got on social media last night before 10 o'clock and said that they were going to wait until 4 a.m. to assess the conditions. I understand that 4 a.m. is tough timing, but it's also pretty fair because we've seen a lot of districts cancel early and then they get laughed at when the roads are clear the next day. CDOT did make the decision, or DPS rather, made the decision to close this morning, and it seems like that was probably the right decision. And I also think they deserve some credit for being clear about exactly when they were going to make the call. One of the two STEM school shooting suspects is not going to go to trial. Alec McKinney pleaded guilty today instead. Imagine a lot of people have a lot of feelings about that. I care most about what the family of Kendrick Castillo thinks. So here's his dad, John.
Every day was tougher than I ever thought, and I can't imagine going through trial. And it's not healing just for my wife and I, but the other families that are affected. I wish I could say that, there's some joy here, but May 7th was tragic, and we have to remember that, we need to legislate and change juvenile law so that we can change the tide of domestic terror and school shootings.
John Castillo wants us to call school shootings domestic terror. If nothing else, that's certainly something to think about. The second suspect in the case, Devin Erickson, has pleaded not guilty and is going to go on trial in May. That'll be 1 year to the month after that school shooting in Highlands Ranch. There's a longtime Denver city official leaving for a job in government relations, and it highlights just how lax the rules are on city leaders going straight from working at City Hall to working City Hall for favors. Stephanie O'Malley has held a series of positions over the years, the last one being created just for her by Mayor Michael Hancock. She was overseeing minority contracting, which is work that the city acknowledged was already being done by somebody else in city government. If O'Malley's name seems familiar, she was formerly the elected clerk and recorder, and she's the daughter of former Mayor Wellington Webb. Now, Stephanie O'Malley is moving to the University of Denver to be their Associate Vice Chancellor for Government and Community Relations. She will obviously be having said relations with her former colleagues at City Hall. Now, there's no law against her lobbying right away. She can walk in the next day and talk to them. The city essentially has an honor code system that asks former city employees not to use their inside knowledge within 6 months on the outside. But it's not like the city can punish somebody for breaking the honor system because they no longer work for the city. So speaking of ethics in city government, the Denver Ethics Board this week called for tougher punishment for a Denver building official, the guy who meddled with an inspection and used his position to help his family's business. The Denver Board of Ethics says Scott Prisco was told that he should not be doing that, but he did it anyway. But all the Ethics Board can do is talk about it. It's up to Prisco's supervisors to decide what to do with him. Denver's Community Planning and Development Department says Prisco made honest mistakes and it won't happen again. He will keep his job, but he has been told not to be involved in his wife's business anymore. We reached out to Mayor Hancock's office. They, of course, run the show, and they said they think things were handled appropriately. The money is now starting to pile up. The money earmarked to feed hungry kids in this city. It's more than 10 million tax dollars. This is spending that was approved by voters for those kids. A year later, what is the holdup? Here's Anusha Roy.
For more than 14 months, as the city of Denver mulled over wording, staffing, and making sure they fulfill what Denver voters asked for, 1 in 5 kids were struggling with hunger.
It takes longer than I think we would all like to see it take.
That was in November, a year after voters said yes to raising the sales tax to help feed more kids. Today, we found out the city still hasn't spent any of that money on food, but did settle on a plan to listen to other people's plans and hopes by Thursday to start accepting grant applications from nonprofits.
Would have preferred that we start at the beginning of the calendar year.
That was a second councilwoman, Jamie Torres, once again saying things may have taken a little bit too long. We had to talk to her over the phone today because of the snow. But since we had her on the line, we had to ask, grant applications aren't a new thing, so what was the holdup?
Yes, we want to make sure that kids get food now, but we also want to make sure that systems are starting to change.
In the meantime, more than $10 million were collected between January and November of last year, and this year, the city could collect more than $12 million.
So then we saw that the mayor's office for Children's Affairs was asking city council for more funds to feed kids. And we were like, what's going on? Why are they doing both of them? Well, one is a federal program administered through the city, so they need city council's approval to get more funding to keep up with the demand. And they said the other program that we were talking about, it is supposed to fund even more ways to feed kids and think of even more ways to address this issue. So we're still waiting for that to happen.
Keep after him, Anusha.
Yeah.
Keep after him. All right.
One day I'll come back and say they fed a kid.
Yes, indeed. We will enjoy that day. Thank you. Hey, we're getting some feedback, asking additional questions after we covered Colorado's caucus system this week. Our politics guy, Marshall Zellinger, is still trapped inside CDOT's secret underground bunker. So I'll take a stab at the questions that were sent in by a viewer named Greg, who's from Broomfield. Greg, we're going to do this with the help of our Magic 8 Ball.
Is the outcome of the caucuses legally binding on the parties? So the caucuses exist to pick delegates to the county assemblies. It's the choices that those delegates make that are the final say. Who owns the caucuses? Well, the parties run the caucuses. It's not like a primary, which is run by the government. How do political parties compare and contrast with corporations? Well, the biggest obvious difference is that political parties are considered nonprofit groups. Corporations make a profit. Are the outcomes of Colorado's primary elections legally binding on the political parties they serve? Yes. A primary is run by county elections clerks and overseen by the Secretary of State, so the results are no different than any other election.
Always appreciate your feedback. If you think we've missed something in the story, let us know. We'll revisit it. We'll answer your questions directly. Politics does not take a snow day. In fact, we learned today it might actually be more effective. Hadn't thought about that. But then a guy named Eric Budd, who I follow on Twitter, was saying this morning that he likes going door to door in the snow because a ton of people are home. And Eric said they tend to be more impressed that you've made the effort to visit them in bad weather. So volunteers were out for Elizabeth Warren in Boulder today in the snow. Our snowman, meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen, he has been reporting from the mountains since 4 a.m. If there's anything that he loves as much as storm chasing, it's the simple beauty of a well-composed haiku.
Corey Reppenhagen is on the weather beat.
Stuck on a highway. It's snowbanding 101. I'm out of jerky.
That was Corey Reppenhagen on the weather beat.
Had no family to say goodbye and to thank him for his service, but Colorado showed up. And your good news today was easy to find. Just point a microphone toward a kid, with the exception of these kids. Their school district's baffling decision today left them cheated. Next.
Word went out this week here and elsewhere asking if anybody might be able to come out in the snow this morning to honor a veteran whose graveside service would have had no one there. Hundreds of people came out in the cold today to prove that Colorado cares about veterans like Staff Sergeant Clyde Baldwin. A Korea veteran had one living relative, a 93-year-old sister who lives out of state and wasn't physically able to come. But all those Coloradans stepped up and stood in as family for a day.
When will it end? Oh my goodness, the jet streak in the northwest flow continues to create these enhanced snow bands along the Front Range, making travel almost impossible in the Colorado high country. Roads are icy, snow-packed, temperatures continue in the 20s, and we've got a few more hours of snow before things start to wind down. Our high today at 28, we should be in the mid-40s. We're headed there tomorrow. This jet streak has created this narrow band of snow that extends from Grand County down through Jefferson and Douglas counties all the way down into central Texas. We expect the snow to start to wind down around 8:30 or 9 o'clock with a shift in the pattern. Already many areas reporting 6 to 12 inches of snow with a winter weather advisory extended out through midnight for the metro area. area and advisories for heavy snow and wind in the Colorado high country. Light accumulation in the next couple of hours, an inch or two of snow, and then a shift that will allow for a drier day tomorrow. Sunshine along the Front Range. The snow winds down in the high country. That means better travel I-25 and I-70, and we get a nice little break tomorrow before the next storm and next round of snow on Sunday. Cloudy and 19 tonight with another inch or two of snow, and then skies clear. Our high today 47 with sunshine. Snow showers on Sunday, moving out Monday, a break Tuesday, another storm and another chance for snow this time Wednesday into Thursday. A very active February weather pattern.
Next, he and his dad drove an hour through the snow so that he could wrestle at the state tournament. His school district told him to turn around and go home.
My good news today is that it's snowing in Colorado.
And yes, that was so many kids' good news today. But spend a little time with them and you'll learn a lot more. That's next.
I get the schools have to prioritize safety on a snow day. I'm still baffled, though, by the decision made by the Douglas County School District today. So they canceled after-school activities. All right, that's fine. But then students like Logan Byers from Ponderosa High, who were supposed to compete in today's JV state wrestling tournament up in North Glen, they were affected. So there were wrestling families that had driven up from Douglas County yesterday and got hotel rooms on the north side of town. They're trying to be really careful about the weather today. Logan, his dad, they chose to make the drive an hour from Elizabeth so that he could wrestle in that state tournament. But then he was told, even though he was safely there, because his district canceled after-school activities, he could not compete.
While I understand that the weather conditions and each school district has to make their own choice, there were schools that drove through Douglas County to get there. There were schools that drove from Pueblo to get there, from Palmer Divide. They drove through our county, and they felt it was safe. So to automatically decide what is right for our children without our consent on something that goes on outside of the school district, I feel like our school district overstepped and took it from them.
District said that if it isn't safe to run buses, they don't want to encourage parents to drive instead. And I understand that, but surely there's got to be room for a little bit of common sense and discretion. A state tournament outside of district boundaries, a situation where parents got hotel rooms nearby to be safe. There's no way to apply a little common sense and flexibility and let those kids compete today? I think so. It's a shame the school district didn't. Now that said, most kids today point a camera at them and they were more than happy to share their good news.
News is that I'm skipping school. Today I'm playing in the snow with my mom.
My good news is waking up to a snow day and getting to spend time with my little brother and sister.
Do you have any good news?
Not really.
My good news is that my sister landed in Mexico.
My good news is that I get to hang out with my friend Phoebe. The snow is fun to play in, and I like that it's cold outside.
My good news is that it's snowing and I can hang out with my friends and play with them.
My good news is that my dad is coming back from Panama.
My good news is I'm going to Phoenix for a soccer tournament. My good news is skiing with my mommy, and then we're gonna go home and have hot chocolate.
There's no shame in someone for crossing the line in a parking lot on such a snowy day. But I would have thought the guy would have felt the curb before he parked on the cleared sidewalk. That and your feedback next. It is a snow day edition of your favorite and mine. You've crossed a line. Plenty of parking lot lines couldn't be seen in the snow today, but that is the sidewalk, champ. Christy Brennan spotted this at 16th and Logan. I'm going to hope that they parked there when it was all snow covered and then somebody shoveled afterwards, because otherwise that's rude. People were walking around the obstruction on the sidewalk all morning. Somebody wrote something in the snow on the side window, and unless that car owner's name is Richard, it was quite inappropriate. Jim writes in tonight, says CDOT doesn't need to tell you if it's safe to drive or not. Look outside. That's fine, Jim, but I also appreciate the fact that they've got cameras all over this state. Todd says, Kyle Clark, typical anti-American lying Democrat journalist. What's wrong with society? Put that one in the fire. Good night.